Our guy, Zach Lowe, is in the house. All right, Zach, I want to know how you would classify this season's trade deadline. Was it quiet, impactful, productive? What word would you use to describe today?
How about weird? Some of the biggest names traded went to teams that are actively trying to tank this season. The biggest win-now trade, the most aggressive win-now trade, was executed by the Pacers, who have the third worst record in the NBA. Anthony Davis is a wizard. Is he even going to play this year? Jaren Jackson Jr. went to Utah, who has a top 8 protected pick that they got to make sure they don't change hands. Jonathan Kuminga got traded to the Hawks in a trade that everyone was like, what's happening? James Harden plays for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Just a very, very strange, weird is what I'm going with.
Good word, for sure.
Zach, I've been pretty adamant that the Lakers have to address their defensive issues. And I sort of expected them to maybe be a little bit more active, but I don't really know what's going on. So as my expert, what happened there?
Yeah, the Luke Kennard trade is not going to address their defensive issues. It addresses their shooting issues. Look, I think the Lakers took a pretty honest look in the mirror and said, we have one first-round pick to trade right now. We could use it on an incremental move, maybe try and get an Andrew Wiggins or a DeAndre Hunter, but we don't think we're good enough to win the title, and we don't think a little trade like that makes us good enough to win the title. In the offseason, if we stand pat now, we have 3 first-round picks to trade. We got some cap space. We can get really spicy then. Let's just try to make a fringe move that helps us a little bit, gives us a little pop, but doesn't really take away from our pick asset base and roll it over to the summer. I think this was a very sort of look in the mirror. We're a good team. We're not a great team. Let's kick it to next season.
And Lo, when you talk about this being a weird time with all the trades and trade deadline, what's really, really weird for me was the Ja Morant no trade. Because when I talked to some teams, there was a surprise level that he didn't get moved. What are you hearing or what do you see why he wasn't able to get moved from Memphis in a trade, especially with that talent and everything else that he has in future ahead?
Well, we haven't seen that talent on the floor enough in the last 3 seasons, really. And this season, with the exception of maybe 3 or 4 really good games, a lot of which came recently, in fairness, he hasn't been the same guy in terms of getting to the rim and getting to the line. And if he's not doing those things, he's certainly not a long-range shooter. He's not much of a defensive player. And I think the market just said, we got to wait and see a little bit before we give up real stuff for Ja Morant. There were teams that would definitely have bought low on him, but like really low. Too low for the Grizzlies, who can just say, hey, look, you got 2 years left on your contract. We're going to just kick this to the summer, kick this to next season, see if you can play better and we can get more. We're not just going to trade you for someone else's dead money that we don't really want. I'm not surprised there wasn't much of a market for him. There wasn't much of a market even for a guy like Anthony Davis, who's injured too and got just a couple of picks for Dallas.
Zach, a guy you brought up earlier, Jaren Jackson Jr., going to Utah. What does that say about the franchise, and what is their plans going forward?
It says, hey, look, all this tanking, all this 4 years in the wilderness, that's over. We're serious. We're never giving up Lowry Markkanen, and we're cashing in a lot of our assets for this guy, Jaren Jackson Jr., and we're going big. They want to re-sign Walker Kessler. They had a couple trade offers to trade Walker Kessler. They said, no, thank you. They're going to try this triple big thing with Markkanen, Jackson, Kessler, and the guy who really, I think, pushed the Jazz to do this, Keontae George, making such a huge leap, convinced them, hey, we got a guy on the perimeter who can handle the ball, who can run our offense, that's ready for big stuff. Let's get out of the wilderness. Let's try to win next year. How much will they win? I don't know. I think this could be like a 48-52 kind of win team next year. This team could be really good. I like the way these bigs all fit together.
Hey, Zach, the Wizards got Trae Young. They got AD now. They got their young core. Do you see them being a playoff team next year, even though the most important thing for them, they got to keep their first-round pick this year?
I think come hell or high water, they're going to keep that first-round pick. If it's outside the top 8, it goes to the Knicks. I wouldn't expect Trae Young to play a lot of basketball. He looked great on the sideline tonight. Big, bright red sweatshirt, a lot of jewelry, looked great. Anthony Davis has got a deep fashion ensemble. He's going to look great on the sideline. They're going to make up injuries for these guys. They're going to keep that pick. And if they get lucky in the lottery, they roll into next year with maybe an impact player from this draft. Alex Sarr, Keyshawn George, Bub Carrington, Will Riley looked great today. I don't know if you guys saw that, John Wall, but your Wizards destroyed the Pistons on the road, ran away from them a little bit at the end. You throw in AD, Trae Young, absolutely they can make the playoffs this next year. This is the East. Anything's possible in the East.
You know, obviously, Zach, on days like this, the bigger names, they get a lot of attention about what's happening around the league, but a lot of movement goes on. Do you have a favorite, more under the radar or less talked about move that you think will have a good impact for a team?
I love the Pacers-Clippers trade centered around Ivica Zubac. I actually like it for both teams. I thought the Clippers got a couple of really good draft picks, but I love Indiana solving its center problem a year in advance and reminding the world, hey, we may be out of sight, out of mind right now. We were one game away from the championship last year. Tyrese Halliburton's coming back. The rest of the core is still here, and we just basically replaced Miles Turner with Ivica Zubac, who doesn't shoot like Miles Turner, but he's a little bit better of a defensive player, a little more feel on offense as a post player and a passer. They are reminding everyone in the East, you guys better take your shots this year because we're coming back next year full blast. And I think that was an awesome, aggressive move by the Pacers.
I want to know, why didn't Sacramento make any moves? You heard Sabonis, DeMar DeRozan, Malik Monk, Zach LaVine, all these people saying they was going to be moved all year long. Why is the reason they didn't make any moves during this deadline?
Yeah, they definitely lead the sadness standings after the trade deadline. All those veterans looking around like, yo, we're still here? Oh, my God, we got to play out the string here. I just don't think there was a market for these guys. I mean, Sabonis has missed half the season. He's got a big, big contract, and teams just look at him and say, how big can we win with a center who doesn't shoot threes and doesn't protect the rim, as great as he is at everything else? I think he'll have a market down the line because he's a durable, reliable player. DeRozan, I'm with you on that one, John. He's basically on an expiring contract. He can still score one-on-one. He can still get to his spots in the mid-range. I thought someone would take a shot at him. Monk's got 2 years left after this year, and people just didn't want to touch that deal. And LaVine, $49 million player option. It just hasn't felt like an impact guy there. He was just kind of a stay away for a lot of teams. And so this Kings team that is just a mishmash of guys has to stay together for the rest of the season and ride this out.
Look, Zach, I want to hit you with one more, and this is about the Knicks, right? So they did a small one. They got Jose Alvarado, which I think is going to be a nice little jolt of energy whenever they kind of put him out there on the floor. But what are you hearing about them? Because there was some talk, obviously, about trying to get into the Giannis, who wasn't actually going to be traded or wanted to be traded, however that went. But what are you hearing about the Knicks right now? It seems like they're turning the corner, been on this win streak. How do you feel about them kind of moving forward?
Yeah, they've been playing great. And Alvarado, look, Deuce McBride, it was reported today, is going to miss time with his sports hernia surgery. I think he might miss all the way up until the playoffs. So they need a backup point guard. And Swin, you know this. New York City is going to go absolutely bananas for Jose Alvarado. The Garden is going to be rocking every time he sneaks up from behind and steals the ball from somebody. I think the Knicks knew all along, we like this team. The East is open. Mechanically, it's hard for us to make a trade because we have all these gigantic salaries. We're barely under all these restrictive aprons. This team should be good enough. Let's have it have a run. It feels like it's been together for a while. It really hasn't. This is Towns' second year with the team. He joined right before last season. Anunoby's had some injuries. I'd like to see this team get an actual sort of coherent run together, and I still think they can win the East as is. If they don't, if the playoffs are disappointing, this summer gets very, very interesting.
I'm Taylor Rooks with NBA on Prime. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to see interviews with your favorite players, experience the most exciting moments from around the league, and see what the NBA on Prime crew is up to all season long. And remember, you can hang out with us live each week during the NBA season, only on Prime.